We knew when my wife was 6 months pregnant that we were having a boy, and we had a baby shower and bought all the items needed for an expecting parent. We already had a 5-year-old son, so we could reuse some of his things. When she went into labor, I was there by her side. Wasn't a first for me because I was here 5 years ago. Looking back, as our 5-year-old got older, I remember having doubts whether he was mine when he started growing up because he looked nothing like me. But when he was born, I was the happiest I had been in my entire life. I had married my best friend. I am 29 and she's 27. We quickly became best friends when we met at a park. We had been together for 5 years. She conceived as soon as we became intimate, so I didn't suspect that she was cheating. We met each other's family, and she became close with my siblings. We married shortly after our son was born. I started having doubts when he was getting older. He did not look like my child. The more he starts to grow, the more I realized just how different he looked compared to what I expect a child of mine to look like. I had nieces and nephews, and so did my wife, and I have spent time with them. My son didn't even come close to looking like anyone on my side of the family. The shape of his face was different from what I would expect my side and my wife's side of the family to look like. It wasn't so obvious to cause me to panic or be paranoid enough to let that alone drive me. It was my 304 of a wife that really set my alarm bells ringing. Whenever she went out, she never went where she said she did. She would have huge holes in her schedule she could never explain to me. For example, one weekday, she told me she was coming home from work late because she had to visit her friend in the hospital. Normally, my wife's work schedule allows her to relieve the babysitter, but because she told me she was visiting a friend at the hospital, I had to leave work early to relieve the babysitter. As I was watching the baby, I scrolled through Facebook to find the friend she claimed she was visiting at the hospital. To my surprise, the friend she told me she was visiting posted a picture a few minutes ago, and she was on vacation with her family. When my wife came back home, I confronted her about it, and she told me that it was an old photo. By the way she reacted, I suspected that she was telling a lie. So I did the needful by following up with the friend. I sent a message to the friend, wishing her a speedy recovery, and she responded with a huge explanation of how she was sick. Suspecting foul play, I went to her boyfriend's Facebook and looked him up as well. Turns out that he was posting about the vacation as well, which clearly shows that my wife went out of her way to convince her friend to lie to me. I could go on several similar instances. She refused to allow me to interact with anyone from her workplace, and I suspected she was cheating when a close friend of hers texted me accusing her of flirting with her boyfriend at the time. I confronted her and she claimed that she had a falling out and she's trying to destroy her marriage. I took it with a grain of salt and never completely believed her. At some point, her lies started catching up to her soon after we got married. Still though, I loved her like the fool I was. She told me up and down how much she loved me whenever her lies caught up with her. When I catch her in her web of lies, she would try to guilt me by saying that I was too controlling, judgmental, and I was smothering her. So when she got pregnant, I thought it would be a fresh start. I thought we would hit the reset button. Here I was in the labor room, waiting for what I thought was my second biological son, comforting my so-called wife in the presence of the medical staff who were preparing for the impending delivery. She was in so much pain, saying that it was my fault that she was going through all this pain. As I stood there by her side, holding her hand tightly, offering words of encouragement and reassurance, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. I can remember every second of that moment because it marked the most traumatic experience of my life, more than the birth of our 5-year-old son. As the contraction intensified and the medical team guided her through the stage of labor, as they coached her on the breathing techniques and provided support and comfort throughout the process, I was still by her side, holding her hand. I wished that I could take on the pain she was feeling at the time. As the medical team prepared for the final stage of delivery, I was ready to welcome another son into the world. Finally, the moment arrived. Still by her side, witnessing the culmination of months of anticipation and love. I heard the baby cry before I saw him. When I finally saw him, I was a bit confused because it looks like a mixed baby. All the medical staff, except for the doctor, acted like everything was normal. If it wasn't for the look the doctor gave me, I would have thought that I was dreaming. The doctor gave me this look, as if to confirm what my race was, before he recomposed himself. It was glaringly obvious the race of the baby's father. At this moment, it felt like my soul left my body, as if I was frozen, as everyone acted like my wife then just gave birth to a mixed baby. I could feel the grip of her fingers around my palm getting tighter and tighter as I felt my world closing in on me. It wasn't until after the medical team left the room that I regained control of myself. I wanted to confront her, but she was too tired and feeling sleepy. I walked out of the hospital and never came back. Her family helped her and the baby back to the house because I refused to help her, and I wasn't hanging around to sign the birth certificate. Now, her side of the family thinks that I'm a terrible person, failing to mention that she was the one that cheated. Soon after, I did a DNA test on my 5-year-old son. The day I received those test results was the day I filed for separation from my shammed marriage. She was still recovering from childbirth when I served her divorce paper. My mom and sister were staying with us because they had helped her out of the hospital, and they were present when I served her the divorce papers. They became combative when I served her, calling me a deadbeat and an irresponsible father. The three of them followed me around the house, getting in my face, trying to force me to get violent. I knew their plans were to entice me to get violent so they can call the cops and use that against me during the divorce process. I didn't take the bait. Up until then, I have been a good father to her son. I was the best dad I could be for him. I loved him with all my heart and put more devotion than her into being the father he deserved. Now though, when I see him, I am filled with disdain. Disdain for the harlot that I have been with for 5 years, and disdain for myself for not trusting my instincts. I have wasted 5 years of my life. Everything that I have and work for is gone, and the emotional toll is even worse. I have been told by multiple people that I am a monster for leaving my son like that. I basically left with a few clothes and went and stayed at an extended stay hotel. I would remain there till I found an apartment and move some of my things, but I will leave all my furniture with her. Moreover, she contributed some of it. I would rather she have it. I don't want anything from my old life to remind me of her. Even when I was at the hotel and she didn't know where I was, she still tried multiple times to guilt me into coming back to her. She would have our 5-year-old call me at random hours of the night, crying and begging for his daddy to come back home, using all sorts of manipulative tactics to torture me as if she hadn't done enough, and then turn around and tell me how much damage I am doing to the family. In every conversation that he is brought up, both online and off, I am berated and shamed that despite the fact that I am not the boy's biological father, I am his dad. Why she continuously cheated on me throughout the marriage. I stopped being friends with most of our mutual friends because she used them to gang up against me. They called me a despicable person for abandoning the child like that, as though they would love me to continue to be cocked. Despite how difficult it was for my parents and siblings, they stood by me. They told me that they supported whatever decision I made. My parents especially, because they have bonded with her son and babysit for us sometimes. I understand how hard it is for them, but any moment with him reminds me of her betrayal and how much of a fool I was. I have sadly come to realize that in most part, my feeling meant nothing to some of our closest friends and family members. They felt I should man up for a child that isn't mine. I understand that the boy is innocent, but so am I. The fault lies with his mother, but nobody seemed to be holding her accountable. All they think about is how I'm abandoning a son that the DNA already proved that he wasn't mine. I know that the man he called his father for his entire life just walked away, but I am expected to man up and act like everything is fine. Some friends and family tried to guilt me, saying that I never loved him or was always looking for a way out. It is hard to convey my emotion through writing words, but for them to be accusing me for allowing the vitriolical hate to fester towards my wife to destroy the life of my 5-year-old son makes me believe that they don't consider me as a person. Which part of the blame lies on her? Everyone is dealing with her with a kid's glove. Is anyone going to hold her accountable? I am supposed to be the man of a kid that isn't mine and just accept being a cuckold. Should I wait for her to have a third child and a fourth? When does it end? How about me? I am a human too. I have feelings too. I feel pain. I feel betrayal. I feel emasculation as well. Why should I put my own life and feelings aside? I was never the boy's father. I love him like one, and honestly, I still do. But I would come to hate and contempt him if I had to play that role. And I would hate myself for not standing up and taking my life back in my own hands. He's not my child, and even though he is innocent, he shouldn't be my problem. We all know who the fault lies. For those who say I stay in her son's life and be his father, that's not realistically possible, as we are getting a divorce, and I am getting a disestablishment of paternity. You seem to be forgetting that I have been cheated on, lied to, and used by a vile self-centered harlot who has now caught her children up in her lies and deceit. He is a casualty of her action and blameless. However, it can never change the fact of the harsh reality we find ourselves in. I don't hate him. I feel so sad when I think about how he feels. But all I see when I look at him is the 5 years of my life I was lied to, 5 years of my life I was used, and 5 years of built-up doubts and frustration with a woman who used me. There's no putting aside my hatred to try to be in his life, because the life I lived with him was nothing but a facade created by his mother. This is the harsh reality I find myself dealing with, and I simply cannot in good faith put myself or him through it anymore. She knows who the father is, so why isn't everyone going after her to search for him? Has everyone gone insane? This is not easy for me. I can't explain to him why I'm currently filing for a disestablishment of paternity, because she would have me paying child support as a way to continue to be part of his life. I don't know why she doesn't want to look for his real father. She already told me that she would fight the divorce and would put me on child support. She's putting in more work, fighting me to stay in the marriage than she did when she was married. All she had to do was give me exclusivity, and she couldn't even pull that off. Now it's my fault? Now she's claiming I abused her all throughout the marriage. I told her that since I was abusive, then she should do everything she can to keep her children away from me. But no, she wants me to be in his life. My lawyer said that I have a good chance of not paying child support, as he has seen similar cases in my state. But there is a chance that it doesn't go my way. I don't know. My biggest concern is not money. If it is, I would gladly pay for it, because I still love him. But I don't want his mother to use him against me. It's time for me to move on with my life and start afresh. I have made a colossal mistake, and the time and trauma is something that I could never get back. Well, that's a very sad story. As we all know, paternity fraud is surprisingly common, and I empathize with the original poster. I don't know how the disestablishment of paternity would go, but from my understanding, whether it can be done without the biological father's consent depends on the laws of the specific jurisdiction and the circumstances surrounding the case. Some jurisdictions may allow disestablishment of paternity without the biological father's consent under certain conditions, while others may require his consent or involvement. Most states and countries are moving towards prioritizing the welfare of the child at the expense of the legal father, therefore encouraging more paternity fraud. The welfare of the man is not a concern to the state. This is contributing to a high self-deletion rate, because men, to the state, are disposable. To them, all men are good for is paying taxes and dying in wars. Remember the scene in the Titanic where women and children goes first. That's the family court in a nutshell. In the family court, men are supposed to be accountable for the decision that they had no part in. I remember a few years ago I heard on the news that paternity tests were banned in France 15 years ago. If French custom intercept DNA samples or results in the mail, the perpetrator in theory risks up to a year in prison and a 15,000 euro in fine. The French Council of State upheld the law, saying it did not want, and I quote, to upset the French regime of filiation, close quote, and that the intent of the law was to preserve, and I quote, the peace of the families. Now, how can there be peace in the family when the wife is busy getting tag teamed by other men? That's a dystopian society that wants men to accept being cocked. And I don't think any man should unwillingly raise a child that is not his, just like the wife had the choice to cheat. The husband should have the choice to leave if the child is not his. Please let me know what you think about this story. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you and have a wonderful day.